Right. Well, I can't introduce you properly. It reads page 7, Les and Gary, get them off as quickly as you can. So, guys, you can perform, but if you break into anything from any musical, I'm going to have you thrown off, alright? Ladies and gentlemen, Les and Gary. Good evening, Puttenham.
Good evening.
And it's wonderful to be back with you again tonight, isn't it, Ronnie?
Indeed it is. And in a packed programme tonight, I shall be talking to Ray Ment, a man who goes in for meditation because he thinks it's better than just sitting around doing nothing.
And we'll be talking to John Richards, the car designer, who's crossed a Hyundai with Quasimodo and has come up with the hatchback of Notre Dame.
We shall be meeting Robert Snare, that brilliant UK Independent Party candidate who's got his back to the wall, his shoulder to the wheel, his nose to the grindstone, his foot in the door, his eye on the clock, his hand in the till, his ear to the ground, and his finger on the pulse. And we'll be asking him, how do you do up your flies?
And later in the show, we'll be meeting Alec Daniels, who recently crossed a ping-pong ball with a very tall chamber pot and got a ping-pong piddle-high poke.
I can't do me flies up.
But first, here is the news. Earlier today, a juggernaut driven by Dennis Hodgson shed its load of onions all over the M1. He advised motorists to find a hard shoulder to cry.
The perfect crime was committed last night when thieves broke into Scotland Yard and stole all the toilets. A police spokesman said they've absolutely nothing to go on.
Paul Williams, a postman who has faithfully handed over his wage packet every month for the past 20 years to his wife, was divorced today because she found out he was being paid weekly.
David Last, an old farmer from Cumbria, divorced his 17-year-old wife today because he couldn't keep his hands off her. He's since sacked his hands and bought a combine harvester instead.
Following a dispute in the domestic servants' union at Buckingham Palace today, the Queen, a radiant figure in a white gown and a crimson robe, swept down the main staircase and through the hall. Then she dusted the cloakroom vacuum.
And finally, the search for the man who terrorises nudist camps with a bacon slicer goes on. Inspector Terry Bridgman had a tip-off this morning, but he hopes to be back on duty tomorrow.
And now, a sketch featuring Mr. Ronnie Corbett, a man who is described by his wife as the salt of the earth because she keeps him in a cellar. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Puttenham Golf Club's festival edition of Mastermind. Can we have our first contender, please? Good evening. Your name, please.
Good evening.
Last time your chosen subject was answering questions before they were asked. This time you've chosen to answer the question before last each time. Is that correct?
Charlie Smithers.
And your time starts now. What is paleontology?
Yes, absolutely correct.
What is the name of the directory that lists members of the peerage?
A study of old fossils.
Who are David D. Deacon and David Nubbert.
Burks.
What is the difference between a donkey and an ass?
One is the club chairman, the other's the club captain.
Complete the quotation. To be or not to be?
They're both the same.
Correct. What is the cat-handed golfer Barry Butler most famous for?
That is the question.
Who is the present Archbishop of Canterbury?
He's the Puttenham handyman who tells funny stories.
What do people kneel on in church?
The Right Reverend Dr. Rowan Williams.
What do tarantulas prey on?
Cassocks.
What would you use a ripcord to pull open?
Large flies.
What sort of person lived in Bedlam?
A parachute.
What is a jockstrap?
A nutcase.
For what purpose would a decorator use methylene chlorides?
A form of athletic support.
What does Ron McGill do?
Paid strippers.
Who was Dean Martin?
A kind of artist.
Yes, but what type of artist?
Pass.
That's close enough. Correct. In the 1970s, what makes a vehicle with the standard London buses?
A singer.
In 1892, Brandon Thomas wrote a famous long-running English farce. What was it called?
British Leyland.
Complete the following... I've started, so I'll finish. Complete the following quotation about Mrs. Thatcher. Her heart may be in the right place, but...
Her Charlie's aunt.
Correct. Charlie Slithers, you have scored 23 points with only one pass. You are this year's Mastermind champion.